Hey, it's Caitlin and Adam. To be our next guest on Enta Ask, click the link below. Enjoy the episode. We're so excited to be downtown Calgary finally. We're with Chad Larson, who's the Director of Wealth Management and Portfolio Manager, and Sue Derlago, who's the Vice President and Senior Financial Planner. And we are at Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
All right. Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management.
Yeah.
So wealth management is kind of like, for me, is that, but what is it that you actually do?
Sure. Well, thanks for being here. That question opens up such an opportunity to tell our story properly. I think in this industry, like within my background as the portfolio manager on the team, the difference between money management and wealth management is vast and array. By background, I always say, that it's what people think of is buying and selling stocks, bonds, different securities, in the pursuit of making profit on their capital. Wealth management, where this business has evolved, and more specifically what MLD Wealth Management is inside of Canaccord Genuity, is that of a multifamily office. And what we do for people isn't just money management. Money management is one of the pillars in which we operate our business, but there's many other pillars that are core to making up the framework of how we engage with families. So wealth management more holistically is all-encompassing in a holistic approach at everything from their planning, their estate, their insurance, their tax, and a lot of it is lifestyle management too. And Sue can speak more to that about what wealth management is different from just what conventional money management would be.
So, if I'm understanding that correctly, you have to take account the individual, like their spending habits, for example, if you're making a plan for them?
Sure. I think a lot of people, it's not something that people are trained with or study in school, personal wealth management or personal financial habits. Like all things, whether they're athletics or academia, a certain amount of training and knowledge requires into honing those skills. Portfolio management without wealth management is really kind of, I guess I don't want to make a bad analogy, but it's a stool with three legs. It's just not as stable. So when we approach portfolio management, be the same way you approach going to a doctor's office. You can't just sit there and say, my arm hurts, and expect that you're going to be prescribed something that's going to fix your solution. The wealth management component is like that of your healthcare, where you get an in-depth look and a physical, so to speak, of all things financial, where we uncover things and those pinch and pain points, both from those inputs that you can control, your spending, your savings, the things you can't control, taxation, unexpected health events, marital breakdowns, marital come-togethers, all of these things that happen live in real time go into factoring the needs within your portfolio management for liquidity, for cash flow, for tax mitigation, for portfolio diversification, your age, your risk tolerance, and those things change. It's not a linear path to where you want to go. I used to, tease Sue at the early onset. I said, she used to have the easiest job in the world because we would take in a bunch of information, we would make some linear assumptions, and run a spreadsheet, and out the back we could forecast the future. Well, unfortunately and fortunately for us, that's why we have jobs that we're passionate about, where we impact people's lives, is that things change along the way. And having a multifamily office approach whereby we're fully engaged with our families and with the other stakeholders inside of their families, their other generations, their legal, their accounting, making sure all those gears work together, that's what wealth management is. These things can't be siloed, and we see incredible benefit to our clients from integrating all of those other features.
So I liked your analogy of it's like a physical. You go to the doctor, you say your arm hurts, he still checks your throat, nose, ears. Hopefully it's more pleasant than a physical, is it?
We make it a lot more pleasant. But just to follow along with some of Chad's comments, going back to that, what is really that difference between money management and wealth management? We spend a tremendous amount of time looking at all of those moving parts and how they're going to integrate with one another. The biggest comment that I'll make with families when we're working with them is things are going to change. And a big part of our role is laying out that roadmap, but checking in on a regular basis to look at the impact of unexpected life events. And a big part of our role is how do we deploy a family's all of their financial resources to give them those best possible results and put all the pieces together in what has become, a much more complex financial landscape.
That's really interesting because it, maybe my knowledge is like I'm learning a lot because my knowledge is very little on this, and I dabble in different areas, but I don't have like a plan. And yeah, things have changed since I set everything up. And so it's so neat. So do you reach out to your clients then and say like, hey, it's time for us to check in, or?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, in brevity, and not to oversimplify it, but just being respectful of everyone's time as much as the viewers as well. But anything without a process and anything without a plan is really no point in doing. And so we used to maybe be less subtle about it, but we're very actually proud to advertise we do have a plan and a process in which how we service our clients that we implement in the background, such that we want our processes and we want our service to be proactive instead of reactive. I worked far too long in this business where it was a reactive type business. You'd call and say, hey, or I got married, or I just got fired, or I just inherited money. It's like, oh, great, come on in and let's talk about it. It's really not enough. And the wealth management needs to be proactive, and our job is to coach things along. And when we talk about outlaying the roadmap, the minute you have a plan, just understand that it's going to deviate. And our job is to readjust the plan or realign the plan and come back to what it is, instead of going back to where we really started on, not minimizing the importance of money management, but understandingly is that without understanding why we're doing something, how we're going to do it makes no sense to discuss. It's that falls into the interesting bucket, right, not the important bucket, when we understand why we're doing something.
Gotcha. And money can be such an uncomfortable conversation, especially with people you're closest to, like your family, right? And nothing can tear a family apart faster than an unexpected event like a death or an inheritance, and right, there's a lot on the line there in terms of these relationships and the most important people in your life.
Yeah,
right?
and one of the areas that we spend a lot of time on, and one of the things I think that our team is most proud of, is we really try and look at the entire family and how we may see their situation evolving over time. To your point, Caitlin, some people may think they have a bit of an understanding of some of these things, but they might not even know the things that they should be thinking about that need to be addressed in their future. Right. And that's where, our team can play a big role. But also, a big part of that is how do we ensure that family members are well prepared for unexpected life events? One of the things we're most proud of is we have a number of families where we're now working with 3 generations. And that is not something that is unique. And that's something that we're really most proud of, because we're now working, with often people who may be in the later stages of their lives, and they're more focused on, I've accumulated these assets, now what does it look like? Yeah. We're working with that middle generation who's still focused on accumulating, but also enjoying their lifestyle. And then what about those kids that are coming up that may be teenagers or young adults? And we want to try and start preparing them to be stewards, right, for what this family has built and accomplished.
What a beautiful longevity.
Yeah, and one of those things, like I used to tell a story years ago, is that this business has afforded my family great optionality and opportunity, and it's been great. But for years there wasn't really a lot of it didn't fill all the buckets for me. Holistically, like I move numbers around on paper all day long and make them bigger, but they didn't really understand why, like what the impact that would have for families. So now that we've really seen, like through the integration of robust wealth management and financial planning, it's allowed us to really see the value add, and that clarity and transparency that the clients get is incredibly empowering and insightful.
And you guys have some great stories that we're going to get into, and to really demonstrate that. So stay tuned for next episode. Chad and Sue are going to share with us some story time, how they got into this business.
And you're never going to believe how booking your first meeting is going to go with these guys. It's not like anything else you've ever experienced. You're going to love it. So if you want to check these guys out, you're going to go to mywealthmanagement.ca. Did I get that?
Mm-hmm.
mywealthmanagement.ca, and the very first button that comes up, super helpful. You click it, you can book and talk to these guys right away. So check it out and stay tuned to find out what happens when you first book.
We have a lot more great stuff for you, so stay tuned for the next episode to see what we learn.